Hi guys, my name is Blake. Welcome. I thought I would do the mid-year freakout tag. I originally wasn't sure if I would be able to do this tag or not because I've had a pretty bummer reading year. So that being said, I did look at my list of books. I think I have enough books to answer the questions, although I had to change some of them. But I absolutely love this tag. I love watching people do this tag. I love doing this tag for myself. And it is storming really badly here, so I've had to use my lights. Sorry about the lighting and the sound. I also have a new camera, so we'll see if this looks better. But getting into the actual books now. Question 1, what's the best book you've read so far this year? And for this one, I have The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. This was amazing. I read all of the trilogy this year, and this final book brought everything together so well. I was initially really worried going into it because book 2 was a bit of a drag for me. I was worried about where things were going. I was asking what the plot of the book was, and then we finally had everything come together in this final book. I loved the character arcs. I loved where everything left off. It was incredibly bleak, but also I really enjoyed the humor and the character growth and the whole thing. It was chef's kiss. I feel like in this video I'm going to be doing a lot of talking about First Law. Like this whole thing's probably just going to be a First Law gush. I'm sorry. Question 2, what's the best sequel you've read so far this year? I have not read very many sequels at all, other than the First Law books. I think I've only read one sequel, which was The Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan, and that is the second book in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I definitely didn't love it as much as the first one. But because it's the only option, I guess that's what I'm going with here. It was not as heavy on the dragons as I was expecting it to be or what I was wanting it to be. I just was kind of waiting for dragons, and then we only got a couple, and it was more politics heavy, and we were more focused on the culture and the people. But I definitely don't think it was disappointing. It wasn't bad. It was just not what I was expecting from the first book. Question 3, new release that you want to read but haven't read yet. I'm not really sure what new releases have come out, actually. So there's the Brandon Sanderson's Third Secret Project that I want to read. The Adventures of Elmina Al-Sarafi are also on my TBR. So I guess those. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So I'm really interested in the Hexologist book by Josiah Bancroft. Starter Villain by John Scalzi. I actually don't know anything about it. I've never read another John Scalzi book or anything, but there is a cat on the cover, and it's called Starter Villain. So I'm hoping it's about a cat taking over the world because I would definitely read that. Question 5, biggest disappointment. For this one, I have read so many low-rated books this year. I actually had a really hard time answering this question. I think the one that I was most disappointed in, though, would have to be The Gunslinger by Stephen King. I have spent a really long time kind of eyeing the series and wanting to pick it up, but I've always been a little nervous about it because I know that people didn't like the end of the series. I've heard some kind of mixed things about the series, and I have attempted Stephen King twice before when I was in high school. So I hesitantly picked this one up, and it was the one that I thought that I would like the most out of Stephen King's works. I thought that I would like this world with The Gunslinger, but I was incredibly underwhelmed and disappointed with this one in particular. I didn't really feel like a whole lot happened, and I had a lot of questions that didn't get answered. And whenever we did get some answers, it came at the end, and like by that point I didn't really feel like I cared. So I might try to continue on with the rest of the books. But yeah, we'll see. It definitely wasn't my lowest rated, but when I think of disappointment, it's that one. I was pretty hyped going into that book because I've heard some really great things about the early books in the series, and it just didn't work out for me. Next question is biggest surprise of the year, and for this one I have An Alchemy of Mask and Mirrors by Curtis Craddock. I read this because Alan from the Library of Alexandria was doing a read-along for it on his channel, and I've always loved Three Musketeers, but I was really hesitant about picking up this book in particular because it mixed a lot of different elements such as sci-fi, fantasy. There's a unique world building, unique magic system, and so it felt like almost like there was a little too much going on. So I just kind of picked it up on a whim. I hadn't heard anything about it before, and I got it from the library, and I ended up really enjoying it. I gave it a 4 stars. I did have a few complaints there at the end, but overall I was really enjoying the world, especially the magic system. I loved the world building. I really liked how the characters and the villain in that book were intelligent. I'm usually really frustrated with dumb characters, so it was nice to go into a book and like root for the characters because they were making good choices, good decisions. They were thinking things through. It was great. Next question is favorite new author. So I normally wait until I've read a couple books or series by an author. I am currently reading Best Served Cold, and it is also an amazing book. So I'm definitely thinking Joe Abercrombie is going to make it as a favorite author by the end of this year. I loved the First Law trilogy. I'm loving Best Served Cold. I can't wait to pick up the rest of his books. I don't think I've been like this sucked into a series in a while, so I am really just trying to save this feeling because I don't want it to end, and I feel like I'm going to quickly run out of his books, and then I'm going to be sad about it. Next up, I have newest fictional crush. I have not had a fictional crush in a while, so I am actually going to change this question. I saw G from Book Roast changed it to newest arch enemy or arch rival, something like that. The character that you hate. That's your new enemy. And for this one, I have to go with Giselle from First Law. I hated Giselle. I was buddy reading the trilogy with a friend, and she and I both hated his guts. I was like constantly wanting him to die throughout the entire trilogy. I wanted to punch him in the throat on the regular. He was very frustrating. He's very annoying. And I was very tired of hearing his inner dialogue about himself, because that's all he talks about, himself. And he's not even the worst character in this world. Like, we're following murderers and torturers, and there are just some disgusting and despicable people in this world. But Glocta and Logan are like far superior to Giselle in my mind. Giselle is the worst. And I guess it's because he's the most realistic, I feel, of the characters. Like, I have met people like Giselle, and I spent the entire book wanting to punch him in the face. And I was like rooting for every bad thing to happen to him. I was like, yes, let it happen to Giselle. Yes. And yeah, I don't think that he got off as bad as he should have in that trilogy. So it's fine. Maybe he will get what's coming to him at some point. I don't know. And for this next question, I have newest favorite character. This is the last time I'll talk about First Law, I promise. But this one, I have Glocta. I love Glocta. I think he's incredibly funny. I like how witty he is. I really like his dark and morbid sense of humor. I was rooting for him the entire book, and he's not even like he's not a likable person, but I loved him. Like, I want to assist this man in world domination. That's how much I love Glokta. And honestly, if he had died, I would have just quit. Just walked away from the series. Been like, you know what? I can't believe you do me so dirty. Next up, I have a book that made you cry. I am not a big book crier. The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, I probably would have cried with how bored I was reading that book. It just went on and on forever. So yeah, I feel like if I had to cry in one, it would be that one. Next, I have a book that made you happy. And I have two for this one. So I have Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I really enjoyed both of these books. I really liked both of these characters. I thought that they were just incredibly lovely. I read Half a Soul in one sitting, and I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia in like two. So I read them incredibly quickly. They were incredibly cute and cozy. I feel like they were exactly what I wanted when I read them. And I just really loved the characters. They were both very socially awkward, which I related to. I felt secondhand embarrassment for them on more than one occasion. Next, I have Most Beautiful Book You Have Bought or Received. And for this one, I think God Killer by Hannah Kaner is the prettiest book I've got this year. Also, A Day, a Fallen Night is also a stunning cover. Next, I have What Books Do You Need to Read by the End of the Year? And I would really love to read the first era of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So I read the first book, but I need to read the second and third ones. I have been putting them off for a while. The second book has been on many TBRs, but whenever the Stormlight Archive books came out, the last one, Rhythm of War, I knew that there were some spoilers in it, but I didn't want to wait. So I just decided to go ahead and read Rhythm of War because I didn't think that the spoilers would be that serious, which they were. And then I have heard mixed things about the second and third books in the Mistborn series. Like, I know some people don't like the way that it ended. So between those two factors have made me a little wary of continuing. What is your favorite adaptation? I have not seen any adaptations this year. So I thought I would change it to what book do you think should be adapted? And for this one, I'm going to go with God Killer by Hannah Kaner. And for this one, I really enjoyed this book. I picked it up because Elliot Brooks recommended it. She and I have pretty similar reading tastes, so I knew that I was going to like it whenever she had talked about it. And I was reading that, and it was reminding me of Arcane. So Kissin reminds me of Vi, and then Inara was like powder in my mind. I loved the descriptions of the gods and the cities, and the technology and their world, and just, I feel like it would be an amazing Arcane style adaptation. And that's what I want. Let me know if you have read any of these, or let me know how you would answer these questions, because I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye.